So did you watch baseball yesterday? Let me ask you a question. Why do Taiwanese people get so excited when they beat Korean teams compared to other countries? Is there any structural factors that when we beat Korea, that Taiwanese people are very happy? So did you see that there's a gap, the generational gap yesterday, if you watch the game? So some players, they just cry when we win, when we won. But some younger generation players, like Lin Yumin and other players, they don't know why older generations cry. Did you notice that? 所以为什么台湾人打赢韩国的时候会特别开心？然后还有一个年龄的差距，尤其是像一些年轻的选手，像是林玉明啊，好，然后他就说，我不知道为什么陈杰宪要哭哎。So why is that? There's a very big happening or very big exciting emotional moment that when Taiwan beats Korea. Is there any structural factor there? Can you think of any kinds of factor to explain this gap or explain this variation? Anyone? I think you may be too young to experience that our emotions on Korea, right? Well, because historically, Taiwan and Korea are the US allies after the World War II. And let me show you a picture, a map here. So after the World War II, we just mentioned that the Korean War, after 1950, the Korean War breaks out, right? And then the US starting to cooperate with Chiang Kai-shek again after abandoning him in the civil war in China. So Chiang Kai-shek restart here in Taiwan, and the US starting to contain or compete with the Soviet Union and also the Communist Party in general. So the US established this, the first island chain, the second island chain, and the third island chain is from Hawaii. And the colors here, what is the color here? It's brown, right? The brown colors here are the US treaty allies here. What is treaty allies? That is, the US signed a treaty with that country and then established the military base there, including the Philippines, Thailand, Korea, and Japan. There are a lot of the US military bases there. And what is the purpose of that? Well, basically contain or compete, containment of China, containment of the Communist Party. So South Korea here and Taiwan are the two, what is to say, it's very difficult to describe that. I don't know how to describe it, but the US is just like a big brother. And South Korea there and Taiwan there, just the US just taking care of that. You can imagine of this image. And Japan is a giant, already is a giant. So it is a big country. So it's a bigger economy, much bigger economy, and very strong social structure. But after World War II, South Korea and Taiwan are just, well, are very poor countries relatively, and the US just taking care of these smaller countries, we can say that. So South Korea, Taiwan starting a long-term dictatorship under the support of the US. Okay? But there are a very big difference. So, well, I don't know whether to mention that here. Well, yeah. Let me spend some time there because of the baseball game. Okay, so the big problem, there are a bigger problem for North Korea because for South Korea because there's a North Korea here, and you can see that they are very close to each other. Okay, they are very close to each other, And if you look closer to that, the capital of South Korea, Seoul, is only about 50 or 60 kilometers away from the non-military zone. Very, very close. So if the North Korea decided to invade within just half a day, then their army can reach Seoul, the capital. Okay? But for Taiwan, Taiwan is very, we can say, lucky because there's a strait here. So the strait is a buffer for Taiwan that there's no immediate threat for the Taiwan island. Okay, immediate threat. 对台湾跟韩国来说，都是在冷战下的这个局势。那韩国比较麻烦的是，他们面临到一个非常强大的敌人，就是北韩。好，而且因为他们陆地上是接壤的，所以随时随地都会有灭国的危机。哈，但是台湾就有一个台湾海峡在这边。So landing is one of the most difficult part, or one of the most difficult operations for a military action. Landing. So the basic exchange rate for landing is about 1 to 10 or 1 to 50. That is, you have to sacrifice 10 to 50 people in order to get landing to another place. Okay, that is the basement. Okay, so for the defendants, I mean for the defending part, the defensive side is much more easier than the offensive side. 就是你如果要登陆的话，至少这个交换率就是10到50啊，也就是说你至少要10个人上去，可能只能活一个这样子。OK， 对台湾来说 so for Taiwan we have more rooms or space for developing the economy or decrease our size of military. But South Korea, they have to maintain a very strong army, and the US have to support their dictators with a higher level. Okay, so during the 1980s, the democratization activities, the US supported the dictator, but the US supported the democratic movement in Taiwan. Very different. 对南韩来说，从美国的角度来看，美国必须要强力的支持独裁者，因为他们怕民主化之后会带来就是混乱，而这个混乱会引起北韩的立刻的入侵。但是对台湾来说，因为我们有个 buffer 的存在，所以那个时候美国其实是大力的支持台湾的民主运动，然后去逼迫蒋经国必须要开放这样子。So in the 1980s, we will mention that later. But in the 1980s, especially under the President Carter's human rights diplomacy policy, the U.S. started to emphasize more on human rights, and especially they helped the activists in Taiwan to democratize. They have more pressure on the dictators in Taiwan, but much less pressures on the dictators in South Korea. Okay, so we just diverge there. So you can see that in Taiwan, people who are more democratic or the liberals support the US. But in South Korea, the liberals just anti-US. They are anti-US because during the democratization, the US just helped the dictators instead of helping them to democratize. It's very different. 就是在韩国的民主派其实是非常反美的，因为美国对他们来说就是一个敌人，因为美国一直就是帮助那个独裁者。但是在台湾的话呢，这个民主派呢是比较亲美的，因为在这个过程当中给了就是这个蒋经国他们非常多的压，美国给蒋经国他们非常多的压力。So what is the relationship between Taiwan and South Korea? If you look at our economic structure, they are almost the same. That is because both Taiwan and South Korea are the close allies of the US, right? And also we have very, very similar history in the Cold War. So we are the treaty allies. Well, before 1979, Taiwan is also a treaty ally of the US, and the US just helped this country to consolidate their power and then to maintain as a close ally of anti-communism. 就是在地缘政治上面呢，台湾跟韩国都是美国的，就是非常坚实的这个条约盟友，为了要就是反共。And economically, the U.S. share a lot of economic capital and also share the market for these countries. So Taiwan, South Korea, Singapore, and Hong Kong, we are the Asian tigers， 就是亚洲四小龙。OK， 亚洲四小龙在英文里面是 Asian tigers。So in Mandarin, it's Asian dragons, but in English, it's Asian tigers. Okay, because we share a very similar economic development pattern, and we have very close relationship with the U.S. The U.S. shares the capital. Well, the U.S. also shares some of the market or some of the industry they don't want. What is that? That is a highly polluted one, like a chemical, the petrochemical industry, and some of that, because the U.S. have already upgraded their economy, so they share some of their some industry they don't want to these Asian countries. Well, that is a different steps, different stages of the economic development. 就是美国就是把他们不想要的这个产业，或者是一些想要合作出去的产业呢，就分给了亚洲国家，包括这些石化产业啊，比如说以台湾来说，石化那个台塑就是这样来的。Okay. So you can see that the economic structure of South Korea and Taiwan are very similar. So if you see our exported items, 80% are overlapping with South Korea of our exporting items. OK， 就是台湾跟韩国的这个经济的产业非常像，然后我们的出口产业大概有80%以上是重叠的。So Taiwan and South Korea are competitors, long-term competitors in terms of economy, and also in terms of sports. So, so for Taiwan, Japan is something that is very far away, the leaders in every kind of fields. But South Korea, we see South Korea as a competitor. Okay, and 20 years ago, in the early 2000s, Taiwan was, well, economically, we are beaten. we have a landslide defeat by South Korea. Okay, especially for our cell phone, our DRAM, 记忆体, and our monitors. Every kind of the items, we are just beaten by South Korea. Okay, we lost a huge amount of money, huge amount of investment, and our economic growth is just going down. Okay, very bad. And South Korea wins over Taiwan in almost every items, almost, except for the laptop. I think the laptop is something that Taiwan's maintained very strong. But every other items, South Korea just beat us. So there's a very strong sense that we want to win over South Korea. Okay, but for Taiwan, we don't. Most of Taiwanese people don't think Japan is a competitor because Japan is a leader for most of the industry here in Taiwan. But well, we just cannot win over South Korea. Also, there's a main item that Taiwan competes with South Korea. That is the chips. Okay, Samsung and SK, they made very good chips. And TSMC finally take the lead in early 2010. Okay, that is almost 15 years ago. Finally, TSMC just take the lead. Okay, until now. 就是台湾在几乎所有的领域都输给韩国，输得非常惨，输得非常惨。然后一直到大概2010年、12年之后。台积电终于在某一代的制程有所突破，然后终于才赢了韩国。And for the baseball, it's also the same. So there's a statistic shows that before 2016, I think, before 2016, so 20 years ago, and before 2016, Taiwan versus South Korea is about 1-9. So we won 1 games, but lost 9 or 10 in the international games. Okay, so that is why when we beat South Korea, then Taiwanese people are very happy. Yeah, because we finally take the lead economically and also in terms of baseball. And Taiwanese people like baseball very much. So what I want to say is that it is a historical legacy or historical structure that the Asian tigers, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore, we share very similar economic patterns because of under the structure of the Cold War. Okay, and the U.S. national interest is to maintain the so-called status quo. And for the status quo for the U.S., well, let me get into this. So what do you see here? What do you see here? This is a world map, right? So this is a big land, and this is these are the oceans. These are oceans. So there are two major different thinkings about a hegemon or a great power. Two. One is from the land, and one is from the ocean. And for the US, obviously, you can see that ocean is the main point of the US. And for China and for Russia, obviously, they are the so-called land power, okay? Because historically, the power of that country or the power of that great power country is from land. Is from land. But historically, for the US, is, well, highly isolated, right, in this continent. So the origins of the power of the US or the US hegemon is from the sea, is from the ocean, okay? So there are two paradigms. One is from the sea and one is from the land. For the sea power, like US, the core interest, the core national interest is to maintain a free and open navigation of the sea. Because your power are from this kind of shipments, your power is from the trade relationship with others, and your power shows that you can project your military power to other places in the world. That is the origin of the US power, okay? Because you are, well, access to other parts of the world by the sea. And the core interest is to maintain free and open navigation of the sea. Free and open, okay? Free and open is the keywords. On the opposite, for the land power, like China and Russia, what makes you safe or what makes you satisfied as a land power? Well, it is not a free and open. From a land power's mindset, you have to occupy. You have to conquer. Okay? You have to conquer. Because for these countries, you have to conquer them, you have to rule them in order to prevent that these countries attack you. Right? And for Russia, especially here, it's you see this a very long distance of the borders with other countries. So historically, there are a lot of wars between the European countries and Russia. A lot of big countries, big nations, or some of the great generals, they want to conquer Russia, including Hitler, including Napoleon, right? 就是在这个陆权国家的思维当中呢，你要觉得安全，或是你要觉得满足，你必须要去征服其他的国家，因为唯有征服才能够带给你最大化的这个国家的这个安全，不然的话，你就会一直被人家征服。Okay, please.
Is that the reason why Russia didn't want Ukraine to join NATO?
Yes. Yeah. We will have 1 week of this discussion, so we will go this into details later. Because if you look closer into the maps, these are all the plain, how to say 平原? So the very plain areas there. So it's very easy to conquer or easy to attack there. So for Russia, they will say very unsafe if they cannot control others. And for these countries, they are afraid of the invasion of Russians, so they have to join NATO in order to guarantee their security. But on the opposite, Russia thinks that, oh, you're joining NATO and then you will attack me someday. So that is what we call as a security dilemma. Okay, yes. So we will have 1 week of that later. So land power and the sea power here. Okay, so here's a clash of the great powers right now. So we show this map in the first week, right? And we see, I will also tell you that there are about 45% of all of the cargo ships go through Taiwan Strait annually. So there's a heavy load here. So let me ask you a question. So recently there's a big news that Mr. Trump, the US president, he wants to control Greenland here. Right, Greenland, this is Greenland. Right. Greenland is a place where there's a very extreme weather there. So very few people can live there. But why Mr. Trump wants this? So this is a map, right? So imagine that if you are European countries or you are Russians here, and you are going to do business with Asian countries, what is the route for you? So you have to go from here, and then you go through this Suez Canal, Suez Canal. Am I pronounced right? Suez, right? Suez Canal, and then go from here, and then from the Indian Ocean, and then go through the Strait of Malacca. Pronunciation? Okay, 马六甲海峡. Okay, and then you can go to here, Asia. It's taking about 30 to 40 days from here to here, the cargo ships. But why Greenland? Why Greenland? Because if you see from the top, from the Arctic, 从北极的角度来看的话，北极的角度 okay, so you can go from European countries, and then you go through Arctic Ocean, and then East Asia. You go from here and East Asia. All right, so you go from the Arctic, and then go from here, and then you can stay about 2 weeks of this route. Okay, and why we have these new routes? Why we have this? Because before we have the traditional routes from here, and then you go from here to Asia. And it takes about 40 days. But why are people not so smart to take this before? Why? Yeah, please.
Because it was frozen before.
Yeah, but why is not frozen now?
And the climate change.
Yes,
As frozen as before, so you can pass with the ship.
Yeah, correct. Yes. So because of weather, we have a warm climate right now. So the Arctic is not frozen anymore. So there are new routes from here and from here. Okay, so Greenland is here. So everything is geopolitics. Everything. Okay, everything is geopolitics. So 10 years ago, 12 years ago in 2014, you can see that the first country to announce that no human beings or no country should conquer or to occupy any lands of the Arctic is from Southeast Asian countries, Singapore. Why is it the case? Because Singapore now controls the Malacca Strait. Okay, so Singapore want to make sure that they maintain the status here. And if you want to go through the Arctic routes, then you have to negotiate. You have to, balance the cargoes of the channels. OK， 就是12年前第一个出来讲说我们要在北极航道好好管理的人，竟然是新加坡。OK， so there are new routes here, and also it's the same for the U.S. If you want to go from either side of the U.S. from east or from west, if you want to go to Asia, or if you want to go to there, and you can go through the Arctic right now. Okay, through the Arctic. Through the Arctic. This is the US, right? So you can go through this line or from this line. For example, if you want to go from San Francisco or California to European countries, you don't have to go from this here and the Panama Canal and then through the Atlantic Ocean. This is a traditional route here. But now you can go from the Arctic and then it's here. So from here, also you can save about 10 to 15 days, okay? Yeah, everything is geopolitics, right? So for the US, or the sea power, free and open navigation is a core national interest. And the US is now the only, still the only nation who can project its army to every corner of the planet. That is why the US is the hegemon, okay? So the most different part of the US compared to historical hegemon is US is a sea power. But in the history, every big countries, every great power, almost every great powers, they are land powers. So they have to conquer, they have to occupy the nation. But the US is a sea power. Well, you can say also it's after the World War II, we have a Cold War, and then we go into the globalization era. Historically, we don't have the globalization, right? So the US want to maintain free and open, and the US don't have the interest, well, most of the time, they don't have the interest of occupying another country. 美国跟过去的大的国家有一个非常大的不同，在于说，过去的很多的大国或者是当代的那个霸权，他们是陆权国家，也就是说，他们的最大的兴趣是要征服。但是美国当代的最大的霸权国家，他们的兴趣并没有要征服，为什么？因为他们是一个海权国家，他们的这个目的就是要维持 free and open 的这个 navigation。OK，globalization means you move all of the barriers of trade. Well, the globalization is a very hot topic 20 years ago because that is a peak of globalization, especially when China joins WTO. Globalization, you have to move all of the tariffs. You have lower the tariffs. You have to lower all of the non-tariff barriers. You have to remove everything in order to speed up the exchanges of humans, capital, the financial capital and everything. 就是全球化的意思，就是要把所有的这个障碍都拿掉，就是大家就是可以非常自由的做生意等等的这样子。OK，until the era of Mr. Trump. Okay, we will explain that later. But that is sea power. So we are very, you can say lucky, because in this globalization era, the biggest country, the hegemon, the biggest country, the boss of international politics, they don't want to occupy. Well, most of the time, they don't want to occupy another country. So you can see that when Mr. Trump, even Mr. Trump, okay, even Mr. Trump, who is a, well, is a king also, okay. Even Mr. Trump, when he used military actions against Venezuela and also against Iran, what is the purpose? He himself says that I want to choose the leader there. I want to cooperate with the Venezuela's vice president. The US has no interest of taking control or occupying another country. They don't. Because they are the sea power. They have to. They want. What they want is the free and open navigation, and what they want is the market. They want to maintain doing business. They want to maintain the trade. Well, you can say that they want to monopolize the oil. Yeah, yes, that's also true. Okay. But they don't want to occupy that. They don't. Okay, that is a very different mindset compared to the hegemons in the history. 就是美国通常不会想要去占领别的国家，通常不会。所以他在委内瑞拉，他在伊朗，或者他在很多地方，他其实是只想要扶植那个地方的政权而已。所以他们不想要。Okay, so you can, well, we can, of course, we can criticize this, but we have to understand the mindset of the U.S. Okay. So let me finish something there last week. So we finished from here, right? One China principle from China, that is very basic. We have to know this because China now force everyone, requires or ask, they want everyone to recognize this principle, 一中原则, okay? One China principle. There is one China, PRC is China, and Taiwan is part of China. This one is the most important part. Right? This one is the most important part. So China will force everyone to recognize this. If you are a student, if you are an international student or exchange student in China, they will make you sign these statements. Okay, you have to sign these statements in order to study in China. And if we want to do some exchange program with China's universities, and we have to sign this. Okay, China will require us to sign this. Okay, so you are doing everything with China, and they will ask you to sign this. Okay. The U.S. has its own one China policy. Every country, almost every country, has its own one China policy. 一中政策. So there's one China and PRC is China. We don't have any problem with this. But the U.S. only acknowledged China stance that Taiwan is part of China. Okay, so these are the consensus. Okay, almost every country can accept this, but for this, the U.S. only acknowledged that. And we mentioned that this verb is very interesting because some other countries, like Canadians, they use the verb of take notes of. Take notes. Okay, I understand. I got it. I don't take any stance of that. I got it. I know. I understand. Okay, just it. They did not acknowledge. No, they did not recognize. They did not recognize Taiwan is part of China. But when you go to the official website of China, and you can see that China translate every verb of acknowledge or take notes of as recognize. Okay, they will translate this in Mandarin as 承认. Okay, but 承认, which means recognize, is not acknowledge. They are different. Okay, acknowledge is that, no, I understand, I got it. Okay, but in Mandarin, China will translate into 承认, but it's not. Okay, it's not. Okay. And we call this a strategic ambiguity because the U.S. did not specify, well, has not been specified since then about the legal status of Taiwan. And the U.S. will not, always unclear about the future plan of the China-Taiwan relations. Okay? So last time I asked you to read this, right? The U.S. PRC joint communique. And also, there's keywords. Both sides. Okay, the U.S. side declared the United States acknowledged that all Chinese on either side of the Taiwan Strait maintain there's about one China and that Taiwan is part of China. So I asked you what is the keywords here, right? Do you remember that for the next last week? And I said that the keyword is Chinese. All Chinese on either side of Taiwan Strait maintain that there is one China. Maintain 的意思就是认为的意思，主张好认为好 maintain。所有的海峡两岸的所有中国人认为只有一个中国，而且台湾是中国的一部分。Okay, all Chinese on Taiwan and mainland China think, okay, acknowledge or recognize or maintain that there's one China and Taiwan is part of China. But how about Taiwanese? How about Taiwanese? Well, that is why I think this is a genius. I mean, some genius just created this. Okay, diplomacy is always, how to say that? I don't know in the original quote, but 外交是不可能的艺术，大概是这样。So diplomacy is something, it's an art to making some impossible things become possible. Just, well, in just something like this. Okay, there's a quote. All Chinese on either side of the Taiwan Strait maintain there is one China and Taiwan is part of China. But the US did not say that Taiwanese people also think this. Right? What do I mean? This is a Taiwanese and Chinese identity here in Taiwan, a long-term trend surveys conducted by National Zhengzhi University Election Study Center. Okay, and you can just Google that National Election Study Center of the core. What is the English of that? The core trend of something. So let me check that about the English title. But so from 1992, the first survey was from 1992. So this question is very simple. So we just ask you, do you think yourself as Taiwanese, Chinese, or both? Okay, both Chinese and Taiwanese. So the purple line here is both. And the green line here is Taiwanese. And then the blue one is Chinese. You think yourself as purely as a Chinese. So purely as Taiwanese here. So 30 years ago, so you see there's a lot of people, 46%, and 25% of people, 1/4 of people, think we are Chinese, only Chinese. And about 17% of people think we are just Taiwanese, okay? And you see the trend, you can see a very clear trend that the Taiwanese identity just increased, and then the Chinese identity just decreased. So now it's about 2.5%, okay? So what happens here? So 1996, it is the first time of the presidential election. Before that, here's a significant drop here, right, of the Chinese identity. You can Google the Qiandaohu incident. Qiandaohu is a lake in China. I forgot where is the province, but there's a lake. So early 1990s, the two sides of Taiwan and China just opened the tourists. Okay, first time of opening the tourists. Well, after a long-term, how to say that, the extension of, just like an extension of the Civil War. But now we just finally open to the tourists. So Taiwanese people have traveled to China that time, and then the whole group of people just killed in Qiandaohu. And after the incident, after the kidnap and kill, China's authority just buried everyone there and say that there's no such incident, denies all of the charges. So Taiwanese people just shocked. Wow, well, Taiwanese people, a group of Taiwanese people were killed, and then China's government just don't want to do anything about that. So Taiwanese people just shocked, okay? And then presidential election, before the presidential election, China just launched the missiles exercise, a lot of missiles shot around Taiwan to intimidate Taiwanese people, but Taiwanese people elected the first Taiwanese president, and we just finished the first presidential election here. And you see that there's a sharp increase of the Taiwan's identity, and in the year of 2000 is the first time of the party turnover. So KMT, they ruled Taiwan for 50 years, including 40 years of the White Terror and the martial law. We have the first presidential or the party turnover here. But the most interesting thing is that, so you can see during the 8 years of the first DPP term, the Taiwan identity and the dual identity maintain the same, right? So from here to 2008, this time is the first Taiwanese, the first DPP term here, ruling DPP as the ruling party. So the Taiwanese identity just maintained very very similar level. So after Ma Ying-jeou, the KMT, the pro-China party, they regain power. After Ma Ying-jeou's term, we see there's a sharp increase of Taiwan identity. So sometimes we will make a joke that Ma Ying-jeou is one of the one of the leader of Taiwan independence, which is very weird, right? Because he is highly pro-China, but during his term, we see the very sharp increase of Taiwan identity. Why is that the case? Can you have some of the explanations about why during Ma Ying-jeou's term, there's almost 20% of increase of Taiwan identity, but during Chen Shui-bian's term, there's less than 10% of the increase of Taiwan identity. So can we say Ma Ying-jeou is a Taidu 推手, or leader of Taidu? Well, another leader of Taidu is Xi Jinping here. So you can see Xi Jinping just increase significantly for Taiwan identity. So sometimes we will make a joke that Xi Jinping and Ma Ying-jeou who helped Taiwanese identity a lot. Why is that the case? Why is it the case that during Ma Ying-jeou's term, we have this significant increase? No, I think you may be too young to understand this. So what is your age when Ma Ying-jeou took power in 2008? Two or three? Three, okay. You are too young to know this, okay. So I am, in 2008, this is my first time of voting, okay, the first time of voting. So it's also the first time I can enter this as a sample of this survey. So in my generations, I attended the junior high school here in 1997 or 1998. This is the first year, I'm the second year of using the textbook of Taiwan's history, Taiwan's geography, and Taiwan's society. So it is under Li Denghui's term, the first democratically elected president, Li Denghui, we starting to learn about Taiwan's history, Taiwan's geography. So before that, our school systems only teaches China's history, China's geography, and China's society. Okay, because previously KMT still thinks that we are China, we are Taiwan. Someday we will go back to China, so in our school system, we don't teach anything about Taiwan. So I am just the second year here to learn this. And this generations, my generations, our education is all about Taiwan. No, not all, but half of that is about Taiwan. But in your age, in your generations, everything is about Taiwan. So these people, the generations here, 20 years later, we enter the pool. Okay, we taking the education of mainly about Taiwan, we enter the pool here. So this is I will say that this is a lagging effect of change of the textbook or change of the school system. So we're starting to learn about Taiwan. We're starting to identify that Taiwan is our home, not China. Okay, finally, in the late 1990s here. And then 20 years later, we are here. And also, we see that because during Ma Ying-jeou's term, he is highly connected to China. He opened up the tourists. So you can, so if you visit Taiwan, I mean for the international students, if you visit Taiwan 15 years ago, you will see Chinese people everywhere in Taiwan, everywhere, okay, everywhere. So also in the schools, we have a lot of Chinese students here, okay. So that's during Ma Ying-jeou's term. And then we have a Sunflower movement in 2014, which is occupied the legislature for almost 1 month. And the Sunflower movement is against a trade deal with China. So during, for that deal, significant, totally changed Taiwan's fate, Taiwan's future. Because if there's no Sunflower movement and if we sign that, and China can invest in, China's capital can invest in Taiwan's semiconductors industry. And today Taiwan will be sanctioned by the US. Okay. So, well, 12 years ago, we don't know that will happen. We don't know the US starting to do the trade war with China. We don't know that. But because of the Sunflower Movement, we reject China's capital. We reject the trade deal with China. And then, well, we keep our industry alive. Okay. So this is Sunflower Movement. And then we have the Hong Kong's protest, and then Xi Jinping just tighten up of the security here. So back to the communique here. The US has never specified their plan for the Taiwan's future. And also they never says that Taiwanese people want to be part of China. But the US already noticed that Chinese people think that Taiwan is part of China, including Chinese people in Taiwan, right? Both sides of the Coral Strait, right? Both sides of the Taiwan Strait maintains that Taiwan is part of China. Okay, that is Chinese people. But the US purposely ignores the Taiwanese people in this communique. Okay, so that is a genius design. Okay, we take a rest.
Just joined the class today, so can you tell me how can I join a group?
Are you in Trunk class? No?
Yes.
Oh, you are already there? Okay. So except for group 1 and, except for group 2 and this one is 5, so you can fill in the blank there.
I unfortunately don't know the names.
Yeah.
Sure.
So,
I only know.
so maybe I can randomly assign you to a group. Is that okay for you?
Can I join the?
Or the later parts, like 3, 4, or later 7, 8.
I will ask my friends.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
我还拿邮票。
哦，我是要给你一把，对不对？对。那你等一下跟我回去研究室拿好了。Yeah, please.
I had the same question as Justine because I wasn't there last week. By the way, I wanted to apologize because I had to submit a research paper. That day was the deadline. So
Do you so there is no
there is not
English?
my name.
Okay, I will
However,
add the English.
But
on that.
may I, because I saw there is a subject on the China Belt and Road Initiative, and I don't know if the group is full. It's the 4th.
Oh, actually, I asked for the original one, so this is too small. China's Belt and Road Initiative is group 4.
Yeah, I would really like to join this group if it's possible.
You want to join that?
I mean, yeah, it's possible.
Yeah. So
Oh,
ask the girl next to the door. Just the one who speak to me. Yeah. 哎，等一下，轩雅，你们那一组可以加一个人吗？举手一下。Yeah, please ask them. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not grouping. I'm for the first time in this class.
Your first time here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not
Are you in the trunk class? Are you in the
yeah,
trunk class?
I'm on
And can you access to the folder? No. So there's a folder you can join that. So maybe you can just email me and I will just give you the link.
Okay.
Okay, the syllabus and also the folders.
So,
Yeah. So then maybe.
I'm not grouping.
So you go to you go to the teacher's interface is different. So
Okay.
maybe bulletin and then there's one links for the course and you can go to the folders there and also the syllabus. And for the groups, so there are some from number 1, 3, and others. So this is too small. I will ask for the original one. So we haven't decided the topics for here. We haven't decided, but the week we have the date here. So this is too small. I will ask for, but yeah. So maybe I just randomly assign you to a group. Is that okay?
I think I will join this group.
The third one?哎，那个你们是那个第3组吗？习近平。OK， 那个女生说还要加入你。
可以啊。
啊，所以这个国际生啊，对不起，可是这样你们那组就有3个人，3个国际生呢。
因为我们原本还有一个韩国人，但是他好像退掉了。
他好像退掉是吗？可是这2个人看起来都不是韩国人的名字啊。
对，他原本是第7个，但名单之后我们才知道他退掉，他也没有跟我们讲，所以但我刚才看到他是名单上也没看到他，应该是退选。
哦，好啊。可是这样的话，你们再多加一个国际生呢？
没关系。
这样会不会开怪挂的感觉？就太多国际生。
看，我不知道，我是都可以，
我是没有意见的。
我也是都没关系。好。
So I will assign you to a group. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay. So maybe it's on 6, 7, 8, or 9. Okay. Yeah. And I will email you to and connect to them. Yeah.
这样其他组国际生会不够。
是至少都有一个啦。看起来至少都有一个。哎，等一下，菊池这个哦 ，Hello. Yeah. I think this one is you.
Oh,
Is that you?
okay.
I
That's
think
okay.
that is you. So maybe you are in the group 9.
Okay, group 9, okay.
I think so. Maybe I will ask you an original one for this. This too small for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I will join group 3 with and Adam.
Okay. But you have 3 international students in your group, so I will ask you to speak more. Yeah, because you are the only group to have 3 international students. But it's fine.
Where are the other international students? I cannot read.
Oh, this one. Just this one and this one.
Oh, but it's the Chinese name, so if you're
Yeah. I mean, we have.
It doesn't have.
Yeah. Sorry to have this. I will have a.
Do you have this with the?
Actually, on the system, I don't have your original name. I only have this very weird system. Yeah, but it's fine. But you have 3 international students, so you have to speak more. Yeah. So, 请说。
我们可以选主题。
哦，你们是第几组啊？
是5月第6。
哦，因为我们是想说，就是后面的组后面的那个题目，大家可能会互相协调一下。
是哦。
对，就不要重复。我可能会请组长之类的，然后就再写信给组长。对，你们还有很久啊，不需要那么早准备啊。
会紧张吗？
会紧张？真的吗？哦，对哦，下礼拜就。
我们11号要报告，13号我们明天要辩论哎。
哦，是哈，那你们，哦，是哎。
对啊。
人生就是如此，就是事情就会撞在一起。
然后我们的国际生也消失了。
你们国际生也消失？
不知道去哪了，他今天没有来啊。
那你们就自立自强喽。没有洋将的时候就是这样，像我们 Jonathan Long 受伤是一样的。你们如果来看棒球一样。
有看，还调到东起来看。
对，所以 Jonathan Long 受伤的时候，我们还是要打，对不对？所以
还是要去跑哎。等一下，之后跟他们猜拳。我又要跟他们猜拳，我这臭手要跟他们猜拳，确定哎。
好，所以就这样。OK。
臭手。
So I joined the group.
Please email me about. So you are joining group 4, right?
Yeah.
So email me about your name and then just tell me that you are joining, so that I can take a note.
Do you want my Chinese name also, or just my student ID?
Just English and then I can figure it out. Because there's a very strange translation on the system. I can match that. Yeah.
我要问你说，我昨天记，最后就是我11点钟的时候有在记一次那个，就是因为我昨天不是就是前你帮我写推荐信，是我，然 然后就是我后面有再寄一次资料，可是因为我是第一次弄这个东西，所以我
哪一个？哎，
不确
等一下，
定
昨天，那你再记一次好了。然后，哎，你说是那个是什么时候？是，
压到
你写3月18，
对
对，可是它上面写3月31呢。
对，可是因为它还有其他的，然后我想说要不要早一点寄，因为它是要邮寄过去。
所以呢，就是这样，就是通常通常我会请你就是写一个，我会请你写大纲嘛，有对不对？哎，忘了。
好像没有跟我说。
那你写一个大纲给我，就条列说你想要我强调哪一点。
我刚刚就是晚上的时候是列了，就是因为我不太确定这样子是可不可以的。
但 anyway，然后你要在那个就是前几天在 email 就提醒我非常需要人家提醒。
嗯，好。
对，所以就比如说。
就是我是列这个样子，还是说我
这样可以，对，就这样。然后
我需要再记一次吗？因为我是昨天半夜。
这个我有收到。
那我还有需要其他给你什么？因为我付的是。
就是等整个东西写好，等你整个东西写好了之后，你就跟我说，那我可以就把它印出来，然后给你一起寄。我通常是把如果是要纸本，就是我需要封起来。
对，
然后你就一起寄。
但他就是他申请表上有一个这个东西，这个是我需要拿去系办。
对啊，对啊。
好的，耶，感谢。对。他很紧张，他说：“我们是其中的第一组，我们真的不可以选吗？”
那你就 email 给我啊，然后就是你们的 preference， 比如列个2个、3个这样。
好。
对。
好，那我记。
对。
我晚上。
对，就这样。所以那你就先选那个就是待选清单。
好。
对。
OK。
Okay, so some logistic issues. First of all, please find your group members. Okay, so if you cannot find your group members, you can email me or email TA, and I will connect you by the email. And also, after the midterm, so we have some blank topics, right? So please, each group after the midterm, please, the group leaders, please submit your preference to me. Okay, just please select 2 to 3 topics you are interested in, and the group leaders email me. Then I will just arrange that. And next, we will have I forgot whether I mentioned this or not. We will have a trip, a group, the class, how to say that? The trip, field trip, field, how to say? 校外教学啦，就是 so field trip to National 张开学张开学 Memorial Hall. So we will go there on March 30th. So we will meet there 10:30 that day, and then the whole trip will be 2 hours. Okay, so please mark that. Go there, and we will meet there. March 30th, 3月30. And another thing is that next week we are going to have a 10 minutes presentation. So you only have 10 minutes. 10 minutes is not long. It's not long. So 10 minutes is very short. So please make sure that you finish that on time. You have to have firstly or generally give a concept or define that topic. For example, the topic for next week is how Xi Jinping utilized democratic system to do the propaganda of his works. What is the democratic system? What is Xi Jinping's broader picture? So you have to give us this, and then a general one, and then go into some details. That is, some points you want to elaborate. Okay? 就通常10分钟非常短，所以你们一开始通常就是给一个非常大的 general picture。那接下来才是进入到细节。那这个细节你们可以选一下说，那你们想要分享的细节主要有几个 ？And the most important part is that I think is that to give us some of the examples, stories. That is the most interesting part. So tell you some of the news events, some of the reports, so you can use any kind of resources. For example, when you are going to tell some of the stories about Xi Jinping, then some news events, okay, that will be interesting. 就是你们可以找一些故事案例哈，比如说习近平怎么样利用这个网军啊、统战的手段啊、经济上的手段等等来去这个就是跟这个民主制度有关的。好，民主制度开了哪些门让独裁者来运用？这是下礼拜的主题。那你们都要自己去选说，那你们在这个有限的时间内，大概可以介绍怎么样的论点？这样 ，OK。And the format, okay, or how many people should present? That is all up to you. So 就是你们要怎么样的 present? I only ask you that do not focus or concentrate only on 1 or 2 persons. It's fine, but that will not be a good presentation. So maybe 2, 3, 4 people are fine, but just not doing to focus all of the loadings to just 1 person. OK， 就是不要让就是一个人从头讲到尾啦。好，大概就是你们可以稍微轮替一下。OK， so that's all. So if you have any question, please just email me or email TA, and we can discuss more. Okay? Any questions? So if you can find your group members, then just email me or just email TA, and we can arrange for you. Okay? Yeah. So we just finished the One China policy and One China principle, and in Taiwan, we have very polarized stance on this. For KMT, they maintain until today that we have the One China principle, which is highly similar to China. The only difference is about this. There's one China, and Republic of China is China. Okay, so for PRC, they think that PRC is China, and for KMT, they think that Republic of China is China, and Taiwan is part of China. So for KMT people, for the KMT supporters, Taiwan is not a country. Taiwan is a province. Okay, Taiwan is a province. Well, that is KMT, and they still think today. They still think today. So for me, I mentioned that the original ROC, the first ROC established in 1912, was already dead. Well, just because defeated by PRC in 1949. So after 1949 in Taiwan, we have another new country, but we use the old name ROC. That is for me, okay? And the ruling party right now, the ruling party, DPP, since they took power in 2016, they denied the One China principle. Why? It is easy because, well, Taiwan is not part of China. That is very simple. For DPP, it's very easy to, well, for most of us, and including me, we can easily recognize that there's one China and the PRC is China. That is quite straightforward. But Taiwan is not part of China. Okay? So DPP denies that. And because of this, PRC, I mean, China is very angry about that. So after that, after 2016, China just cut off the tourists, cut off the students, and cut off a lot of things. They cut off the official ties with us, with Taiwan. Well, this always taking much longer than expected. But these 3 communiques are very important. For the third one is a serious one for Taiwan. So for the third one, we just quickly go through that. The third one is all about the arms sales. Well, the U.S. will continue to maintain cultural, commercial, and other unofficial relations with people of Taiwan. And the question of United arms sales to Taiwan was not settled. And then the United States government attached great importance to relationship and will not intervene in China and will not pursue two Chinas or one China, one Taiwan. Okay, and does not seek to carry out long-term policy of arms sales to Taiwan. Arms sales to Taiwan will not exceed either in quality or quantity of terms of the levels supplied in recent years. Basically, a final set of basically this is a communique to the U.S. want to decrease in the long term on the arms sales on Taiwan, and also well, it was all about arms sales. And that time, well, arms sales to Taiwan is a security guarantee. So in the past, KMT knows that. So if you are reading Taiwanese newspapers these days, you can see that the KMT resist. They don't want, they oppose any arms sales with the US recently. But in the past, the KMT just fear that the US will cut off the arms sales because the arms sales is the foundation of Taiwan's defense. The US is almost the only country who can have the arms sales with Taiwan. Because of China's pressure, the US is the only provider of Taiwan's arms sales. So Taiwan is very nervous about this. Well, it is kind of US showing they are going to abandon Taiwan. At the same time, after the communique, the Reagan administration, they send their envoys to Taiwan and have this assurance privately to Taiwan, okay, privately. That includes the U.S. will not agree to set a date for ending arms sales to Taiwan. This is a guarantee, okay, privately. Not agree to consult with PRC on arms sales to Taiwan. Will not play any mediation role between Taipei and Beijing, and will not agree to revise the Taiwan Relations Act, okay? Because in the Taiwan Relations Act, there is requirements of the U.S. to provide arms sales and any necessary goods. Not agree to take any position regarding sovereignty over Taiwan, and will not pressure Taiwan to negotiate with PRC. 六项保证. So the sixth assurance, 六保证, was later passed by the Senate as a resolution. So not a private guarantee anymore. But well, the resolution has no binding requirement, but still not private anymore. 就是说，在2016年的时候被国会通过，变成一个决议啊。就是虽然说决议案并没有法律的效力，但是没有拘束力，但是就是它还是毕竟是成文化的这样子。The sixth assurance to Taiwan, and in 2019 there's a declassified memo inside the presidential office that is very important. We have to know this, okay? It's this. So if you get into the sixth assurance list, and there's a declassified cables in the presidential office. Let us read that. So this is from Reagan, President Reagan to Department of State, saying that after thorough review of the issues, the president has decided on the course regarding to Taiwan's arms sales and the response to message conveyed by Deng Xiaoping during the President Bush's visit. And this is the wordings in the communique, right? The most important part was very long. Well, I cannot find that because there's too many words here. So let me read this. In short, the U.S. willingness to reduce its arms sales to Taiwan is conditioned absolutely upon the continued commitment of China to the peaceful resolution of the Taiwan PRC relations. What does that mean? That is, the quantity and the quality, essential that quantity, also in addition, it is essential that the quantity and quality of the arms provided Taiwan be conditioned entirely on the threat posed by the PRC. Okay, so just read this. That is, the quantity and quality, the levels of the US arms sales to Taiwan is determined by the levels of the threat posed by PRC. So if the PRC threat is higher, and the US will sell Taiwan as better or advanced weapons. But if the PRC's threat is lower, then the US might decrease the quantity and quality of the arms sales to Taiwan. Okay, so you can see that during the past 10 years, Taiwan got almost every most advanced missile systems from the US. Why? Because the PRC threat is higher in the past 10 years. Okay, so this is a declassified memo from President Reagan, and it is still effective today, until today. 就是从1982年，就是虽然美国跟中共签的那个817公报，就说我们要慢慢的减少对台湾的这个军售，但是同一时间他们提出了6保证，而且同一时间有这个 memo 内部的 memo， 而且这个到现在到今天还是仍然适用的。OK， 就是说所有的军售数量上跟品质上都是取决于中共的威胁。OK。So this is very important. So please read the 2 paragraphs here. Okay, quantity and quality of the arms provided to Taiwan be conditioned entirely on the threat posed by the PRC. It's very clear that the U.S. will evaluate PRC threat and then to determine the quantity and quality of the arms. So you can look into recently. President Lai Ching-te initiated a special budget for 8 years plan of the arms sales. And that is about $4 million of the US dollars, 1兆多的这个台币这样子。4 million? Yeah, please do some math for that. But there's a special budget for the arms sales from the US, and those are the most advanced ones. Very advanced ones. Okay? So, in general, we should know this. The US One China policy includes several different documents. That is a big mixture of different documents. The first one, or the fundamental one, is the Taiwan Relations Act. 3 communiques signed with PRC, and 6 assurances with Taiwan, and also others. So every time when you are reading the statement from the US, you can see this. This is just like what I say as a 念经，就是像在佛教念经一样。Okay, just repeating in themselves in a machine ways. Okay, so every time when you see some spokespersons from the US government, they will say that, oh, the US, China, and Taiwan relations remain the same. And according to Taiwan Relations Act, 3 communiques, 6 assurance, and blah, 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 blah. It's always like this. Okay? 就是每一次你去看美国政府的这个发言，他们的发言人都一定会把这段拿出来当念经一样。他就把这个就是所谓的美国对台湾的政策，对中国的政策就是一中政策，那这个就是包括台湾关系法1法3公报6保证了。OK， 就是台湾关系法3个公报跟6项保证， Okay， so you can see the American government will repeat themselves many times about this. Even after they make some major changes, they will repeat this and saying that, oh, we are not changing everything. Okay, very interesting. For example, Mr. Biden. So Mr. Biden, in his term, it's the first time, well, not first time, second time, that there's a US president saying that the US will help Taiwan militarily when China attacks Taiwan. Well, that never happened before. Well, yes and no, because the first time is George W. Bush. He once mentioned that, oh, the US will help Taiwan, and then he corrected himself very quick after he said that. But Mr. Biden, well, 20 years ago when he was the Senate, he criticized George W. Bush about saying that. Well, he served in the Foreign Policy Committee for a very long time. So 20 years ago, he criticized that. But when he was the president, he said 4 or 5 times that the US will militarily help Taiwan when China attacks. Well, that is a very big change, right? Big change of the US policy, because before that, the US never says that. The US president and everyone never says that, because we call it as a strategic ambiguity. 美国总统从来不会说他们要在军事上保护台湾，从来不会，因为这个叫做战略模糊。可是拜登自己讲了4、5遍 ，OK, openly in front of the international media. So for example, this place is when he visited Japan, and he with Japanese Prime Minister, he says that, oh, the U.S. will help Taiwan. We have the commitment for that. So does that change the U.S. policy? No, because every time, the next day or next couple of hours, you can see the U.S. government's spokesperson will repeat again, oh, according to Taiwan Relations Act, we communicate 6 assurance, the U.S. policy on Taiwan has not changed. Every time, just like this. So we have to do this. The U.S. will always say that they did not change. They does not change. There's no change of the U.S. policy toward Taiwan. They always say this. Why? Because they want to keep it flexible. Okay, they will not change these core documents of Taiwan, but they can decide what they want to do. And if you read the Taiwan Relations Act, there are also a lot of flexibility as well. 就是在这个里面，其实都有很多很模糊的字句，就是在美国就是想要保持一个弹性，他们可以自己决定说他们要做什么。And this is another one very interesting. Recently, Mr. Trump, okay, Taiwan arms sale approved by Congress. This is a U.S. Congress, approved by the U.S. Congress. Well, we know that this arms sale was delayed by the Taiwan's Congress as well, the Taiwan's opposition party. But this is in the U.S. Approved by the U.S. Congress is delayed by Mr. Trump because he wants to visit Beijing. So he delays that. Actually, this happened before when in 2018 or 2019. Okay, he delayed for half a year, but this time it's again. And Mr. Trump says that I'm talking to him, Xi Jinping, about it. Well, in the sixth assurance, okay, the U.S. had not agreed to consult with the PRC on arms sale to Taiwan. So for Mr. Trump, I'm going to talk to him, Xi Jinping, about the arms sales. Is that violating the sixth assurance? If you ask Mr. Trump, well, Mr. Trump might not. I'm sure that he does not know anything about sixth assurance. But if you ask him or ask the spokesperson of the U.S. government, he or she will tell you that, no, we didn't, we do not change our policy because Mr. Trump will talk to him, but not consulting to him. We make our own decisions, okay? Consult is something that you take considerations of others' opinions. But if you are just talking to him, talking to Xi Jinping, I'm not consulting you, I'm telling you, okay? He can interpret this as this way. 就是习近平，川普说我这个要跟习近平讲，我们要跟台湾的军售，那这有没有违反这个6项保证呢？如果你去问川普，他一定不知道什么是6项保证。但如果你去问美国政府的人呢， 他就跟你讲说没有啊，这个 consult 的意思是说我会跟中国讨论说我要不要军售，可是没有，我们自己做我们自己决定，我只是告诉你而已。对，习近平的意见不重要，我只要告诉他这样。So you can see this is highly flexible. Even though the U.S. has this assurance here, and repeatedly reiterated it times by time, and Mr. Trump here talking to Xi Jinping, okay, talking to him, but we can say that, oh, talking to him is just informing him about this, not consulting about this, okay? The U.S. will not take into consideration Xi Jinping's opinion about Taiwan's arms sales. Okay, that is a flexible, very flexible explanation of the U.S. policies. Okay. I'm not. Oh, this is another interesting part. So both Mr. Trump and Biden say about some similar things about this. So because the journalists like to ask him questions very many times about Taiwan. Everyone knows that Xi Jinping will talk about Taiwan. So the US journalists will ask the president a lot of questions about Taiwan. And Mr. Trump, well, you can see he's not a patient guy. So he will say that, no, we are not talking about it. Taiwan is Taiwan. Okay. That is, he does not want to get too much involved into the Taiwan issues because it's complicated. He wants to do something quick. He wants to do a deal. So he just saying that Taiwan is Taiwan. We are not going to do that with Xi Jinping. Okay. And for Mr. Biden, you can also see that this is also after his talk with Xi Jinping. Before he goes to the Air Force One, he answers that we made very clear that the call with Xi Jinping, we support the Taiwan Act, the Taiwan Relations Act, and that's it. It's independent. What is it? It's Taiwan. Okay, Taiwan is independent. It makes its own decisions. That is, Taiwan makes its own decisions. So Taiwan is Taiwan. The U.S. is U.S. China is not Taiwan. That's very clear about the U.S. stance. Okay. So in general, the U.S. maintains very close relationship with Taiwan and also China. The U.S. provides a lot of economic cooperations, national security aids, but maintains a very ambiguous promise. Sometimes the U.S. will say more, sometimes will say less, but the U.S. policy toward Taiwan is, I would say, that is quite stable. Okay. 就是美国对台湾的政策其实一直以来都差不多是这样。Okay. And the whole things can be defined or many times repeatedly showing is a term called status quo. Okay. The U.S. will say that, oh, we will maintain the status quo. The national interest of the U.S. is to maintain the status quo. But actually, everyone is trying to change the status quo. Xi Jinping is changing the status quo. Taiwan is trying to. The U.S. want to maintain that. Okay. Now, for Taiwan, I will say that maintaining the status quo itself is a very difficult part because China want to taking over Taiwan. So China is trying to change the status quo. And Taiwan also want to change the status quo because we are not a normal state yet because we cannot use our official names. We don't have the diplomatic relationship with a lot of countries. So we want to change that, right? Okay, so far, do you have any question about this? 就是这现在的这一切东西，我们都可以说叫做维持现状。而这维持现状是美国从20世纪代以来，或者说从1950年代以来，他们定义的这个他们的核心利益就是要维持现状。但我们知道现状一直都在改变，但是美国会一直跟大家讲说，我们就是要维持现状，维持现状。那现在我们会觉得说，现在正在试图改变现状的是中国那一方，中国正在试图改变现状。Okay, so we finished the last week. Okay, let's get into this week. Well, because of the baseball game, I think the baseball game or the names of Taiwan can just this is providing with us a very good summary of Taiwan's history of the US-China-Taiwan relations. Before 1949 or 1950, China is China and Taiwan is Taiwan, okay? So starting from 1950, we have another new country here in Taiwan, the old name Republic of China, and here's a problem. Because the regime in Taiwan claims that they are China. And another regime in China established in 1949, PRC, also claims that they are China. But who are China? Okay, who are China? Well, obviously, that time, Taiwan's China, I mean, Chiang Kai-shek's China, is still in the United Nations. So, well, we claim that we are China. I would not say we. I don't want to be a we with Chiang Kai-shek. Okay. Taiwan's, Chiang Kai-shek regime claims that we are China. Okay. But in the Olympic Games, okay, so we firstly use the name of Formosa in China, because obviously we cannot rule China. We rule only Taiwan, and Formosa is Taiwan. It's Taiwan's name. Okay. So in 1956. We use the name of Formosa China, and then in 1960, we use the name of Formosa. And we use the name of Taiwan. Well, that is very interesting, right? We use the name of Taiwan in 1964 and 1968. Chiang Kai-shek is very unhappy about that. Very unhappy, because Taiwan is a province for him and for KMT. Taiwan is a province. We are China, okay? We want to be China, okay? And you can see that that time is we still keep our seats in United Nations until 1971. Okay, until 1971. And after 1971, we use the name of Republic of China in the Olympic Games. Well, that is very, for now, it's a mission impossible nowadays, but we use that, Republic of China in 1962, and in 1972. In 1976, in Canada, the Canadian government asked us to use the name Taiwan, but Chiang Kai-shek refused to use that, and then just withdraw. We withdraw from the Olympics. Okay, we just withdraw because we refused to use Taiwan. And in 1984, we signed a deal in Switzerland with the Olympics Committee. And then we determined to use the name Chinese Taipei until today. Okay, Chinese Taipei. Well, in Mandarin, you can see Chinese is 中华, not 中国. But in English or in foreign languages, Chinese is Chinese. Just you belong to China, right? Something you belong to China. Okay, Chinese is Chinese. But in Mandarin, we have some different wordings. For that. But the foreigners just cannot differentiate that. Okay, China is China. Chinese is something belongs to China. There's no concept as 中华. Okay, no, it's no 中华. 中华 is China. Okay. So we use the name Chinese Taipei. I think, well, that is something I cannot understand. People who support Republic of China or people who support the whole China, because the KMT people will think that Taiwan is a downgrade. They think that they are China. They are the whole China. They are a big part China, the greater China. So if we use the name Taiwan, that is a downgrade, humiliation for ROC people. That thinking is still effective today. So sometimes you will see some scholars from KMT, they will think that we should protest to the US Congress, because the US Congress always pass some of the resolution calling Taiwan as Taiwan, and they are not happy about that. I'm serious, yeah. You can still think that this kind of argument today. 就是国民党的学者，很多人会说，美国的这些国会一直通过一些决议，说台湾是台湾，这个是一种降格，他觉得我们被侮辱了，我们要写信给国会议员，叫他们称我们为中华民国，不能叫我们台湾，因为他觉得叫我们台湾就是一个降格。很多国民党的学者仍然这样想哦。 到今天仍然这样想。So for KMT people, using Taiwan is very weird for them because they think they are China, not Taiwan. So, but is the name Chinese Taipei better than Taiwan? I just cannot understand that. Okay, I just don't understand. Because Chinese Taipei is either China, nor Taiwan, nor Taipei. So for example, our baseball team, 30 people, 30 players, none of them are from Taipei. Okay, and 2/3 of them are Aboriginal people in Taiwan. Well, Aboriginal people are very good at sports, right, here in Taiwan. 就是我们的棒球队30个人里面没有一个人来自台北 ，OK， 而且有2/3是原住民，那你叫他 Chinese Taipei， 那不是很奇怪吗 ？OK， 好 ，Chinese Taipei here， OK。So this reflects our brief history that Taiwan cannot use the name Taiwan, and we only can use this strange name Chinese Taipei. Well, just like if you are going to call the U.S. as British DC or something like that, British Columbia, District of Columbia, or you are going to use the name of French something. I mean, use your the former name of colonization, something like that. Okay. So the U.S.-China relations, we have 3 different stages here: the containment, engagement, and competition. Okay, 3 main stages. So the containment is after the World War II into the Cold War era. And then in 1970s, the U.S. starting to engage with China. Okay, and then strategic competition. We don't have a starting point, a clear starting point, but we will explain this later. So, well, under the Cold War is the containment, and in 1970s, Mr. Kissinger, the National Security Advisor, starting to arrange the presidential visit to Beijing, starting to cooperate with Beijing. Why is it the case? Why the U.S. want to engage with China? It is because, well, the main reason is to compete with Soviet Union. Okay, enemy's enemy is your friend. Okay, so in 1970s, China's starting to have some fight with the Soviet Union. Okay, and there are some, well, they just starting fight over their borders and some of the policies. So they are fighting with each other. So the enemy's enemy becomes your friend, and then the U.S. starting to cooperate with China that they can just compete with the Soviet Union. And there is a theory of liberalization and democratization that if a democracy engages with another dictatorship, then we can help them to liberalize. 就是美国跟中国交往呢，有2个主要的原因。第一个是想要跟苏联这个就是竞争嘛，就因为敌人是你的朋友，对吧？所以呢，苏联的敌人那个时候他们开始，苏联跟中国开始吵架，那所以就是你就去找中国，然后你就可以就是一起对付苏联。第二个理由是独裁国家就是你要帮助独裁国家民主化，那这个时候你就要跟他多交往，你就可以改变他。Okay. We also have another reason that the U.S. making money with China, trade with China, but that is after the year of 2000. Okay, that is not the main reason in 1970s. Okay, that is not the reason in 1970s. This is a very, the later development. Because in 1970s, China's economy was still very bad. China's economy is starting to grow after 1978 when Deng Xiaoping opens up and the reform. So that time there's no reason, there's no factor on economy, but very little factor on the economy. 就是跟中国做生意这件事情呢，并不是那个时候的考量。So President Carter and the human rights diplomacy, although he only served in 1 term, but this has a significant and long-term impact on the U.S. foreign policy. Because of Jimmy Carter, the U.S. foreign policy emphasized the human rights, even under the Republicans. Okay, the 2 parties, literally, okay, at least literally, They emphasize human rights a lot. Okay, so it's all from Jimmy Carter. So here are some of the articles here. And there's a whole theory on this, what we call the modernization theory of democratization. That is, if we have economic development, and then there will be more middle class. This is bourgeoisie, I think. Am I pronounced it correctly? Bourgeoisie, or something. People who have some assets or economic benefits. Am I correct? Please correct my pronunciation. OK， 就是资产阶级，资产阶级 ，and 中产阶级 （middle class）。So if we have economic development, then we'll have more bourgeoisies and middle class, and then we'll have a higher education, and people will demand liberalization because you have knowledge, you have money, and you are pursuing for a better life, and you are pursuing for good qualities of life, you are pursuing for good governance. Okay, so this is the theory. Okay, the theory. 就是说有一整套的民主化理论，就是说，当我们有经济发展，经济发展就带来这个中产阶级还有更高的教育，那人们就会是想要就是追求更好的生活品质，然后去要求更多的政治参与，所以最后就会民主化。Therefore, the U.S. because the U.S. is becoming the hegemon and the leader, right? And with capitalism, a very free and open economy, so then the U.S. want to help others to join this system and to promote democracy. Well, sometimes it's very naive, but it's their mainstream policy is that. The most successful case of human rights democracy and the most successful case of modernization theory and the help of the US to democratize is Taiwan. Okay, Taiwan is the case. It's the most successful case. And the biggest failure of this policy is China. Okay, because China failed to democratize, but Taiwan just democratized in the 1990s. Okay, and it's a very interesting development is that China. Well, we all understand that China has the same similar language with us, right? So China, seeing that Taiwan was liberalized and democratized after engagement with the US, and China will put it as a priority in 1990s to prevent that democratization and liberalization happen in China. And China at that time invite a lot of Taiwanese scholars to China and then to ask them about their experience of democratization, not for their own democratization, but for their prevent. They want to prevent democratization from learning the case from Taiwan. Okay, China learned a lot about how this happened. Therefore, during the economic development in China, the rapid development era, China just prevent that from learning from Taiwan. Okay, very interesting, right? 就是中国看到的这一套东西，就是美国的这个帮助民主化，还有这个所谓的现代化理论帮助台湾民主化。中国知道在发展经济的过程当中，最重要的一件事情就是要维持党的控制，所以他们学了很多从台湾的经验，就是邀请很多台湾的学者去，就是告诉中国为什么可以民主化，它是如何民主化，然后呢，防止这件事情发生。So China learned a lot from Taiwan's democratization, so that they can design a system to prevent democratization in China in the late 1990s. Okay, so in this progress, in these patterns of economic development, China designed a lot of law systems, designed a lot of their party institutions to prevent democratization, and China is success. Okay, China is very successful about that. Okay. Well, we only have several minutes. We will continue this next week. Okay. Any questions about this? It's always in the English class. It's always much slower than expected, but I think it's fine. please make sure that you read the readings. Read. And also connect to your group members, okay? So for the next week, we will have a 10 minutes presentation. Any questions, just email me. Okay, I will see you next week. Okay, thank you.